Look at this spectacular island here. This is an atoll, and an atoll is completely organic landform. It's created and maintained by the coral reef around it and the plants and animals that live there. This one in particular, though, is really serving now as a model for global conservation. This is Tetiaroa. It's 40 miles north of Tahiti, and it's where I work. Today I want to share my story of how I came to understand that blending traditional knowledge and science is really a way forward, and it offers a powerful blueprint for global conservation. This place plays an important role in the story, but actually it begins on another island. This is Moorea, just next to Tahiti, and I arrived here in 1989 as a graduate student studying coral reef islands. I worked out of the UC Berkeley Research Station, the Gump Research Station, and by 1992, I had completed my master's thesis and I took over managing the station. Pretty soon, in the middle of all that, I met an amazing woman, Hinano, who became both my wife and my partner in academic and cultural adventures. We shared a strong interest in investigating and understanding the natural world and also teaching about it through education programs. From the beginning, we represented really different worlds. Me with my training in science, I grew up in California, and for Hinano, her background in Polynesian culture and traditional knowledge. Together, we realized that if we could combine these two ways of knowing, we could build a unique approach to preserving the ecosystems and the culture of these islands. So, in 2004, we took this vision further, and we created the Atitia Cultural Center on the University of California property with the goal of integrating traditional knowledge and science from the research station. This ended up being highly successful, with years and years of fascinating exchange between local elders and the scientific researchers at the station, and also the transmission of the knowledge that was gained through this into the schools through outreach programs. One example of this is with the Biocode project, where we created a complete catalog of all the species on the island, along with their genetic markers. And on the side of that, we started the Ethnocode project. And the Ethnocode project basically looked at all of the species that had cultural importance. That was 20 years ago, though. And today, we're starting a new project, Biocode 2, which will look at both the full genome and microbiome of 30 species, 30 marine species. And for all of those species, we'll also collect cultural data that will include things like where they're collected, how people interact with them, how they might use them for food or for medicine, how they might be used in songs or in legends, and in some cases, how they relate to families as ancestors. So this project is creating protocols, really, for research applications, for collection of data, cultural data, collection and storage of data, and then also for the community reporting, how we report this back to the community. I mean, scientists report to scientists all the time, but not necessarily to the community. Okay, so this is a really cool new project. But our journey continued, Hinano and I, when we started to work on Tetiaroa. The idea, once again, was to integrate traditional knowledge and science. But in this case, we started from the ground up, and we started with kind of a unique model of how to do conservation in a place like this. And this combined a commercial enterprise, a nonprofit organization, the community, and of course the owners of the site. Marlon Brando bought this property, or this island, in the 1960s, and his family still owns it today. He had a dream to manage the island and use tourism to fund science and conservation and education programs. But his dream only got partway there. And by the time Hinano and I arrived, he had passed the torch to Richard Bailey. Richard Bailey created the Brando Resort on the island, a spectacular eco-resort that combines really innovative technology, sustainable technology, including, quite interestingly, a seawater air conditioning system that works fantastically well. Even before the Brando was built, though, Richard Bailey and team built a research station They created also this nonprofit called Tetiaroa Society. And Tetiaroa Society was given a research station and also was given the job of stewarding the island. The first thing the Tetiaroa Society did was to write a management plan for the island. And this was really important. This kept us with all of our goals lined up. And this included scientific research priorities. It included an education program. And it also included a conservation program that was to restore the island to its natural state. We also created both scientific and cultural committees to guide us forward. Carrying out this plan has resulted in lots of great projects and successes. The first I'll mention is the innovative program to reduce mosquito populations on the island. And this was carried out by a partner of ours, the Institute Louis Mallardet, and they released millions of mosquitoes, of sterile male mosquitoes, to eradicate this invasive species. It's incredible to be on a tropical island and to have no mosquitoes. But the other thing is, of course, that it's really important because these mosquitoes are a vector of disease, and it's also quite a cool project because it's scalable, and it's actually now being used in other islands. When President Obama visited Tetiaroa, well, first of all, we put him to work, but he was so impressed with the program that he recommended that we talk to the Center for Disease Control in the United States. And actually, the same style of work is now being used in Los Angeles County in California to reduce exactly the same species of mosquito that we have on Tetiaroa. Tetiaroa's flagship program, the Tetiaroa Atoll Restoration Program, relies directly on cultural knowledge. In traditional atoll conservation, the communities that live there realize that seabirds are incredibly important to their island. And they always designate as a motu manu, or a bird island. And the seabirds are important because they're transferring nutrients from the ocean to the island. They're feeding in the ocean and they're defecating on the island. And so it's a really important part of the ecosystem. And you have to also understand that before people came, all of the islands in the Pacific were bird islands. They were everywhere. So our program is following the lead and has carried out an impressive eradication of rats and ants, and we're starting up coconut trees soon. And this will allow the atoll's native flora and fauna to recover from the terrestrial ecosystem all the way out to the coral reef. As the populations of seabirds, crabs, plants, algae, corals, fish, as all these recover, we're also monitoring this in real time so we can track how it works and add to the model. Within a year of rat removal, the nesting success of these wonderful white terns went up by over 100%. You can see these birds, they nest on a branch and there's no nest. They just lay an egg, the chick hatches, grabs onto the branch, and that's it. So they're extremely vulnerable to rats. And it was just fantastic to see them just explode in population as soon as the rats were gone. On the other hand, this is a new species to Tetiaroa. We haven't, in recorded time, we haven't seen this bird, this species, masked booby, but after rats were gone, this pair arrived and has nested successfully now for 3 years. And then also, everybody's favorite tropical island monster, the coconut crab, is making a remarkable recovery. We're seeing hordes of young coconut crabs now that normally would have been eaten by rats when they're very small. And so it's really making an amazing recovery. Our goal for Tetiaroa is really to develop it as a model for atoll restoration. And this year, in fact, we were featured on the cover of 2 of the best scientific journals around. So we feel like we're really moving along and getting things done. A recent study found that students exposed to environmental education, rooted in indigenous knowledge, are 50% more likely to use sustainable habits as adults. It's really important to us on Tetiaroa that we include a lot of cultural wisdom and practices in the education program. Our education program hosts hundreds of local and international students each year, from 4th grade up to the university level. And they're introduced to the island's natural and cultural heritage and learning from both science and Polynesian traditions. They also learn about sustainability with the Brando Resort as their classroom, where they can visit all of the infrastructure that make this a world leader in sustainable tourism. But seeing these principles in action, they're inspired to take this back to their communities. It's really fantastic. And these kids, they have such a great time. We just had a group here last week that when they were leaving, everybody was crying. The students were crying, the teachers were crying, our guides were crying, and everybody was so happy that they had been there and had a great time. Recently, Tetiaroa Society heard the call for more knowledge about the mesopelagic zone. And the mesopelagic zone is this layer in the ocean between 200 and 1,200 meters, or about down to about 4,000 feet. It's home to somewhere between 70 to 90% of the biomass of the oceans. You heard that right. 70 to 90% of the biomass of the oceans is in this layer. And unfortunately, it's recently become a target of industrial fishing. So we decided we need to have a look at this place. And next year, we'll deploy 2 3-person state-of-the-art submersibles that will be set up to do both research and tourism, following the model we're using on Tetiaroa. So we're going to shed a light on this twilight zone, and we're going to use research and education in order to make the case for its protection. The project is called Honu, after the Polynesian name for the sea turtle. It's a mythic animal that connects the land to the deep ocean. And once again, we're working with our indigenous elders to integrate traditional knowledge and respect of the ocean into this project on both the educational and research parts. So the collaborative approach that we implemented on Moorea and Tetiaroa and in the Honu project really goes beyond just an experiment. It's a model for global conservation. And imagine if every conservation initiative honored indigenous knowledge. Our projects have demonstrated that it's possible. And it's happening elsewhere too. The National Park Service is now co-managing lands with Native American tribes. A great example of that is the new Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary in California. Fantastic new sanctuary there along the coast. The fact is that although indigenous people make only up about 5% of the population, which I find this a very low number, but this is what they say, 5% of the world's population, they protect 80% of the remaining biodiversity. So we need to follow their lead. But let's face it, today's environmental crisis, climate change, oceans on the brink of collapse, biodiversity loss, they stem largely from a Western worldview that separates humans from nature. We need a new vision to get us out of this situation. And this new vision is an old one. We need the indigenous perspective, which recognizes humans as part of the natural world. Personally, my journey has taught me that respecting and learning from indigenous wisdom is essential to a sustainable future, and in my case, a sustainable marriage. But how do we do this? We must view indigenous knowledge not as folklore, but as critical guidance for our modern world. By integrating it with science, we can address issues like climate change and biodiversity loss in ways that sustain nature. We need to support indigenous-led conservation programs. We need to advocate for policies that protect their right to steward their lands. Open ourselves to learning from those who have preserved the Earth's ecosystems for millennia. And you don't have to just take it from me, some old white dude. There are lots of great books out there and speakers, indigenous people that are talking about this subject very, very knowledgeably, of course, and also people way more eloquent than I am. So have a look and jump into this. It's really important. Together, with a respectful view of nature, we can make the world a better place for generations to come. This is our granddaughter, Mahaikura, and she's counting on you.